What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall market. I'm going to break down some very, very big things that are coming out as Google/Alphabet just announced their earnings and are doing relatively well so far, which could be very, very big for the market going into tomorrow. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. And deposit $2,000 more, and you're guaranteed 40. The offer ends very soon, in just about 2 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So, NIO saw a bit of a pullback right here. I said to everyone in my video yesterday, we had to get back above 5.7 for this thing to maintain this uptrend. If we lost support right here in this 5.7, 5.8 area, we're looking for a bit of a dip on NIO, and that's what happened, unfortunately. So NIO is dipping down since EMA, so we have key support around the 5.5 area. We'll be watching to see if buyers defend 5.4 to 5.5. If they don't defend 5.5, if they don't defend 5.5, we have a gap to fill way down here, which was 5.25. And if they do defend, we could make an attempt to rebound, so we'll be watching to see which one it happens to be. Now, let's talk about the broader markets first before I break down more details about NIO. For the market right now, we basically have some very, very interesting setups. We saw technologies out there lead the market up, so it's basically tech that pushed us up, whereas consumer discretionaries and others like retail and utilities were a little bit weaker. So what led the market up was tech, and that's why the market is very excited with these earnings so far. Why is that? Because we're approaching big tech earnings. As a reminder, today we have AMD, Alphabet, and Snap announcing their earnings. The main one I'm going to be talking about is Google/Alphabet. Tomorrow we have Microsoft, Meta, and a few more, not to mention Amazon, Apple, and many others. So what happened with the Alphabet's earnings? As of right now, it's up a bit, about 1.6%. Not too bad. They beat on their earnings so far. So if you look at what happened over the last 3 months, for their earnings ending at the end of September, they're up about 35% relative to last year at $2.12 per share, beating forecasts of $1.85. Also, the revenue is at $88 billion, above the $86 billion revenue projection. Search and other revenues were up 11%, above expectations. But they were up about 22% on Google Cloud revenues. Not as bad, so pretty good stuff. Good momentum, good growth, and their ambitions are still quite strong. I think we're still waiting for them to give us more insights about guidance, but so far we're quite bullish, and this could help the market going into tomorrow. Now, for more data about the markets, it's going to be Wednesday, October 30th, the second to last day of October. And 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the GDP numbers coming out. This might cause some volatility, so be ready for all of that. And then besides that, there's not really much else that's coming out, so GDP numbers might cause some volatility at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Besides that, the market's still holding up quite well. Right now, greed is making up the majority of sentiment. There's still a lot of greed in the markets as buyers are continuing to defend. Momentum is also at greed as we're holding above our 125 daily moving average quite well. And finally, the put to call option ratio is at neutral. But this is coming down just a bit, but it's nothing too crazy. And then volatility remains neutral as well. So far, so good. As far as NIO goes, I want to call out the fact that on October 28th, NIO opened its 2600th NIO Power Swap station. This is bullish news as they're continuing to expand, and we're getting a lot more insights thanks to that. So very, very interesting stuff, at least thus far. Also, some bullish news came out that NIO is upgraded to an outperform rating from neutral at Maguire. So they have a $6.60 price target. That's the new piece of news that came out. Volume is at about 64 million, so a little bit above average, not too bad, despite the fact that we're selling off. Short volume is decreasing, though, so we're not seeing as much shorting. And then on top of this, I just want to mention that we are also seeing a little bit of a shift right over here. We're seeing right now the analyst rating is at kind of neutral, a little bit more towards NIO outperforming according to Maguire. JP Morgan was the other last one that says NIO is going to outperform. Besides that, the price-price ratio is going up right over here, so not too bad. And in terms of our seasonality, we tend to see more green about 55% of the time on Wednesdays. It tends to be a good day for NIO, so we'll see if we get a bounce or not. So that being said, what is my prediction for NIO? Most of the time on Wednesdays, we do tend to see NIO bounce. So we will see if this ends up being the case or not. So be very, very mindful of that. So be very, very patient and we'll see how this ends up going. So as far as NIO goes, make sure you look at the support right here at the 50 EMA at 5.54. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking for a dip to 5.5. If we bounce off this, we're going back up to 5.8 plus. If we don't bounce off 5.5, we're looking for a dip back down towards 5.25, all the way down to this gap fill. We look a little bit more bearish, so I do expect us to dip a little bit more, but we'll see if we get a bounce off 5.5. Hopefully, we do get that bounce for a little bit of a rebound. That could help the share price at least to some extent. So look for some downside for 5.5. We'll see if we get a rebound to 5.8. That's going to be very critical for the way NIO ends up moving. So watch those levels very, very closely. For other factors out there, we have SPY. This is pushing. When you zoom out of SPY like this, you will see that we technically have a very, very nice looking wedge that's still continuing to develop. So, we have this rising wedge like structure as we're making higher highs and higher lows very, very nicely. So it's doing a pretty good job thus far. And right now we are looking a little bit more bullish. So as long as we don't lose 5.578, we are favoring upside. A little bit more upside for tomorrow. We could be getting closer to all-time highs. But as far as the way we are going to continue to move, I think that even though there's going to be a little bit more upside coming, just be careful as we hit this resistance because we do tend to reject off 585. So I anticipate a little bit more upside tomorrow. We could get closer to all-time highs thanks to Google's earnings. But then we'll see how things end up progressing from there. For other factors out there, I also want to mention that we have ES. ES is also in an interesting phase. ES is looking a little bit more bullish, could get close to about 5,900. As long as you don't lose 58.65 and 58.50, we favor upside for the 5,900 area. So we look a little bit more bullish to me. I would say that Bitcoin looked pretty bullish, hitting about 73,000. It's going to dip just a bit back down to this imbalance towards the 71,000 area before it sees another bounce. So look for a little bit more downside on Bitcoin, the 71,300 before we see a little bit of a bounce again. So that's what I'm aiming for, at least on coin. For Nvda, we're dipping a bit. I still think we're just forming a wedge right now. We're getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So look for a little bit of a dip tomorrow. It's about 140, maybe a little bit below that. Then we may get bought back up and just continue to consolidate. But that's what I'm seeing as the most likely move for Nvda. As far as Tesla goes, we are a little bit bearish overall. It's been on a bit of a downtrend, but we're going to be looking at some very, very key levels. So it is possible Tesla rebounds tomorrow since we formed a nice wick and we got bought back up at the end of the day. So watch and see if we get back above 260. We could attempt to rebound to about 262. Then we might be looking for a dip. If we don't break past 265, we could be making a lower high again and then fall back down towards our ultimate target around 256 again. So I see some consolidation coming, a bit of a rebound attempt before we continue lower. That's the most likely case for Tesla in my opinion. So watch for that very carefully. As far as NQ goes, we look a little bit more bullish. We could be pushing for 20,800 as we got a nice break thanks to Google. The QQQ is more bullish. We're looking for this uptrend to continue. There's a wedge developing, so be mindful of that. But nonetheless, we could try to push for these highs. We might be continuing to push for 504. So I think it might attempt to break this high again and continue to push on this wedge. So overall, we're still bullish on the QQQ. As long as we're above 500, we're looking for 502.5 and 504 as our targets. I also want to mention that Aapl is kind of consolidating. It's kind of stuck in this range right now. So we're going to be looking at some sideways price action between 232 and 235. I think it's just going to continue to shuffle in this range for now before we see another reaction. Let me go over just a few more. We have the IWM looking a little bit more bullish. As long as we don't lose 221.26, we favor a move back up to 223 plus. If we lose 221, there's a risk of us coming back down to the low of the day, followed by the gap fill for 218. This is favoring 223 as long as we're above those levels. As far as AMD goes, this is what's slowing down Nvidia. And the others' earnings weren't that great so far. If you look at this, their revenue was beating forecasts, but guidance wasn't as great, and gaming revenue fell quite a bit, so that's why it's dipping a bit. So with that being said, this is why AMD is on a bit of a downtrend right here. It's kind of dumping. This is going to slow down some semiconductors out there. We have this gap to fill, so I do anticipate we're going to be dipping back down towards 150, then 148 very soon. Coin pushed quite a bit, so we're looking for some shuffling in this 220 area. But we're going to be watching this resistance very carefully way up here. So this is going to be a tough resistance at 225. And we're looking at support right over here around this 216 area. So this is going to be our range, at least for the time being on coin. We're going to be going back and forth for now. We'll see which way we break. But that's all I'm really seeing for now. Because of Google, Amazon's breaking out. We mentioned this is a strong possibility yesterday if we did get some good earnings. So looking at this high up here towards 194 to be tested, we could be pushing for that. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. For Meta, we look a little bit more bullish. We're trying to push even higher as well. This is pushing with Google, so good news has come out. We have these targets right over here to be watching for, but we're doing a great job at holding up, in my personal opinion. So we're going to be looking for 605 as our potential target, and eventually the 610 area if we hold above 600. Once again, approaching these highs is very, very bullish price action that we're seeing by Meta. And then as far as its supports goes, don't forget to be watching some of these key levels I have marked over here. We're doing a good job, and I think we're going to continue this trend at least as time goes on. So we look more bullish on Meta. Look for some upside tomorrow for 610 potentially as Google's pushing. Tech is pushing. Microsoft is pumping as well. We're looking for basically 436, which if we break, we're looking for basically 440, or very close to the 440 area. Google looks more bullish. We're actually breaking out. We're now up 5%, beating on EPS and revenue and good guidance. This is going to help the market push. So this is an inverse head and shoulders, and it looks like it may continue to push for. If 180 holds, we're looking for 185 as our next target. So way up here. So we're looking at this key level at 180. Then we also have 185 up here, followed by the next resistance around 188. So it looks bullish, guys. It looks very, very bullish, at least thus far. If we reject off 180 and can't hold that, we have 176 as the main supports, 178 and 176. But I don't favor that's going to be coming down to those levels. I favor upside, if anything. So it looks to me like this is going to be pushing higher and then helping the market lift off tomorrow. So that being said, there's not much going on. Just know the VIX is still rejecting here. If the VIX does not hold 19.35, it's going to be dipping lower. That's bullish for the markets. And so far, the odds favor a little bit more upside. So hopefully, NIO tries to follow the trend. I do think it's going to dip a little bit more to about 5.5, very close to our 20 EMA down here. But we'll see if we get a bounce or not. Whether it happens or not depends on different factors, so give this the time it needs. With that being said, guys, I thank you all so much for listening. I really appreciate you guys for your attention. Look for some downside in NIO and see if we get that bounce off that 5.5 area. If not, we could be dipping a little bit lower. But I'm optimistic, and I think the market as a whole has potential to bounce, and hopefully that helps NIO. I thank you for listening. The news that came out for NIO is quite good from Maguire as they have a bullish rating, so we'll be very optimistic and give this the time it needs. I'll be back tomorrow for another update. Until then, have a great day, and peace out.